Absolutely.
right? I mean, sometimes we die, and sometimes like we lose sleep and we lose friends. So, but there's a difference between thriving in afflictions, right?
Mhm.
And you dwindling down
Mhm.
and being gnawed to the bone. And it's I'm not doing well as I am suffering and lacking. Actually, this is detrimental. And honestly, like I've had to ask that question many times. Like, are we thriving through afflictions, or are we in a place where the afflictions are actually uh, not advancing us to greater fruitfulness, but actually like they're just making us more stagnant and more bitter and
Right.
calloused, and so it's that's one thing that's important. But the other thing is the buy-in of those who lead with you, the buy-in of members. I think if you have growing buy-in, that's a good sign. I say growing buy-in because some people think unless you can keep 97% of the church on board with what you're doing, you shouldn't do anything
Right.
that would lose 3%. I
Mhm.
think if you have growing buy-in, right? Like as we continue to teach and reform, I can see this reformation become a part of the church collectively. I think you can see that as a good thing to pursue, right? But if you're about these things and like it's just it seems to have like this smaller circle. Now, you have to be careful because sometimes you may, oh, well, this guy is getting it and this guy is getting it and this guy is getting it, but that's what I say, growing
Mhm.
buy-in, particularly at the officer level.
Mhm.
And I think another thing too is it's one thing to take a church from this to this, right? So let's say like this church is like they've walked from being Baptistic to Reformed Baptistic, right? Or Reformed Baptistic to being like PCA, right? But I think in your case, and this is just generally speaking, right? Generally speaking, because I've seen some people like they go from like being Southern Baptist and all of a sudden that church is like, well, it's like they're like super reformed. But I think generally speaking, a generation is not going to jump 3 steps.
Right.
It'll be one step, right? So our church is we've jumped one step. We were PCUS, now we're PCA. Um, and so now, like in a span of 80 years, which is you're looking at 2 generations
Yeah.
now, we could potentially make another step. But for someone to go from Southern Baptist to like FCC, like Reformed, which
Mhm.
is how you are, like it's just it could happen. But again, like you got to be careful. Like there's not going to be 3 or 4 steps that you make in one generation,
Right.
and you kind of got to see, where that church is at. And so I was reading with my kids today, the end of Chronicles, and I said, notice David did all these things, but he could not finish. Solomon was called to do the rest,
Mhm.
right? And he went this far, and then someone else went further. And I think like there is a legitimate pace of an organic entity known as a church that no matter how good you're doing, they're not going to bypass, massive. It won't be organic, right? It won't be cemented, right? So
Especially when it's only you.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Especially when it's only you.
yeah. Unless certain things happen, like a church split,
Sure.
right? Or some like it gets whittled down to the bone and it's like revitalized, right? And there's a lot of factors too. Like, I mean, for us, like our situation was a bit different because I planted a church, I planted a church that started from the ground up. And when I came to Pinelands, I had about 50 or so folks that had been a part of like a ground up. So like we're learning together, right?
Mm,
Like, what are we doing? I don't know. Okay, let's figure it out.
right.
And then I come to a church where there's like, 100 or so members that have been in place. And I say 100, maybe 120. I don't know. I think about 70 or 80 of those people are gone.
Mm,
Right. So you come into a situation, a new generation comes in of a significant amount, an older generation just disappears, and then new people come in, and all of a sudden, like there's a
Ship.
pliability,
Yep.
a malleability, that wouldn't be so if I just showed up at Pinelands by myself and everybody mostly stayed. So like those things also, you don't plan for that, but you keep that anyway. So again, the art of reformation,
Yeah.
like how do you go from A to C, or A to B and C to E, and what are some factors that help? But I was trying to tell Edwin too is that, like, I guess let me not say just what I said. Let me close by saying this. What do you think? Do you think all this was worth it? And would you do it again?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do. Of course. Yeah. I mean, God's word is worth it. The Lord is worth it. So yeah, man. And again, like that doesn't mean, the people that were hurt, um, there's a narrative that people are convinced about concerning me, that no matter what I do moving forward, that will be etched in their minds forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's not true. I wish that weren't the case, you know. But if someone said, if you could go back to how everything was prior to believing all these things, would you do it? No, because there's, and that's Paul said, bro, that I may know him in the fellowship of his suffering, being conformed to his death. Like there's a fellowship in knowing the Lord in ways that he's revealed himself that also brings forth suffering that is unique, that you couldn't learn any other way. So do I want to be a part of something like this again? No. Because I love God's people, even when they are not acting like God's people. But through this event, the Lord used it to grow me, to humble me, and to teach me, to cause me to be reflective, and to help me to keep growing and keep learning. It hasn't turned me away from the Lord. It hasn't turned me away from my giftings, my calling, first in my home and etc. So yeah, man, no, I think the Lord has used this and is going to use this to make me a better Christian and a better minister of the gospel. So I don't regret it.
Yeah, and you better like tattoo that on your forehead, mentally speaking, because Satan will haunt you for the rest of your life over this. He'll haunt you, and then he'll bring people
Yep.
that will, oh yeah, you're doing this, but I know what you did. Like, so
Right.
that's the thing. Like when there's when there is damage behind you, you have to learn how to move forward, because like that scrap metal behind you, like Satan will very cunningly get those pieces and know how to keep throwing them in your face as if they're still in front of you, and you could, and then all of a sudden when you're seeing something in front of you, that like when you encounter that pressure again and you get in that environment, like it's like, oh man, all of a sudden like you have like the past in front of you, and like, man, like there's like I'm done, I finished, I learned, I grew, that's it. I'm not carrying that with me in some definitive kind of sense, right? At the end of the day, like people say, like, oh, I remember when you did this and you taught it like this way. And like, and I remember like, and I'm like, that's not who I am anymore. Even if that was so, you know what I'm saying? Like the glory to glory, right? Death and resurrection and that maturing, like literally like when you look at your kids, like, oh my goodness, my kids are not, 3 feet tall anymore. They have different features. That's what happens. Like the Lord grows you and you're a different person. And whatever is true about that in a over exaggerated sense, or whatever is partially true about that in a minimal sense, like as you move on and you grow and you're sanctified, like you can really say like, yeah, that's not me anymore. So for example, like, they're like, oh, I remember like when like you used to say it like this and I'm like, yeah, and I don't do it anymore.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but no, but you did it. You did it, and yeah. So what?
Mhm.
Like, and what? Uh, like the Lord really does, in a sense, make us be something other than what we were like a year ago, a few years ago, Lord willing. But the sad thing is many folks, y'all just the same
Mhm.
tired, stunted Christians for like year after year after year after year after year after year. People look at your life the last 10 years and you've gone nowhere
Mhm.
doctrinally, experientially.
Mhm.
And it's not because of God's sovereignty, it's because of your stubbornness
Right.
and resistance to faithful men trying to help you grow. And God will give you over to this stunted, stagnant Christianity. But that's the thing I tell our people when I'm preaching. Listen, do you think you can shut down the Lord when he's speaking to you about something? You think you can reform later? You think you can embrace this later? God can shut a door that you never open ever in your life. Why do you think so many Christians die with so many views that have nothing to do with the Bible?
Mhm.
Like, he don't ever think that you can obtusely be pugnaciously against the promptings of the Spirit, and there'll be a time in your life where you're now in your 60s as a Christian, and you literally cannot
Right.
understand these things. It's just it's gone over. You know
Yep.
why? The calluses have been fermented.
Yep.
Hey, you're saved. God's gracious. But at the end of the day, like, bro, this is why I tell people, like, why do you want to be less than a God enjoying following? Why? What? I mean, to me, it's like, what's the point, bro?
Mhm.
Like I want to, I want to be healthy enough not to die young. Like, I don't, no, I want to be as healthy as I can be, right?
Right. And
Um,
those same people will say they'll agree with you when you talk about saying the doctrine of sanctification and being conformed into the image of Christ, right? I want to be like him, and we sing hymns about these things, and it's like, all right, then this is what it looks like to be conformed into the image of Christ. You don't think Christ believed these things? Yeah, he did, and so if you want to be like Christ, then keep walking with him,
yeah, you
you
want to
know.
be like Christ? Let him be hacking up your branches over and over again that are dead. Anyways, really good conversation. I think this will be very helpful for quite a few folks. Hopefully, it gets the attention